I am also a young 30s, but I am a professional and can't afford a home. I saw another thread by another user who was a Sparky in their 30s and felt cheated and robbed. I saw a lot of comments calling him out as if he was some sort of anomaly. I am also a professional in my 30s, living in Sydney and sharing the same struggles. My biggest mistake is that my parents never owned property and were never wealthy, so as a result they've never been able to help me out. I don't begrudge them because I lived a happy and healthy childhood, but now I see all my friends and colleagues buying houses in middle-class suburbs, and I read a statistic that 60% of Australians are getting help to purchase property. It feels like increasingly birth is the biggest determinant on if you'll succeed in this country. I am only posting this to show solidarity and show that he isn't alone. The nasty commenters in the comments section need to understand that this is a real crisis in this country where educated and essential people are missing out on some of the biggest and basic needs in a functioning society. I feel like we will slowly lose cohesion and end up like some other countries with significant civil unrest. It's all gone too far. This sub sucks, and to be honest I think it's rage bait a lot of the time. The vast majority of people know how difficult it is and how messed up it is. I mean hell, Bloomberg News just did a short doco on how messed up Australia's housing market is and what the US needs to learn to avoid it. Don't let anyone here gaslight you into thinking you're unreasonable or in the minority. You won't get much sympathy here. Most in here are older folk who bought property when it was significantly cheaper. Now to be fair, I've talked to some older folks who are sympathetic and agree that nowadays it's way harder. But many also don't want to believe that because they feel it discredits their work and achievements. Most older people only care when they have children or grandchildren. Buying a house nowadays compared to just 20 years ago is way more difficult. The data shows this. It's literally undeniable. Always love the comments on threads like these. It's basically our Australia on one side, and then the other side are property owners saying, yeah well you just have to buy where you can afford, but basically blatantly ignoring all the policy, culture, and economics in the past 20-30 years that rewarded anyone, even absolute idiots, that invested into the asset class. But hey, you just need to get on the ladder and you can do it too, right? It's a return to the time when birth determined everything. Our governments have failed us. Rich people should not be allowed to buy property here if they are not living here. The problem is that the beneficiaries of the money made off property were other policy makers. I've never been able to understand how individuals own our country's resources. That was another colossal failure of policy. It's wrong. We see you. Remember, it's not the interest rates. The current rates are pretty much normal. It's the fact houses are so expensive. I assume they are 7-8x median wage by now. Sure, rates might have been high for periods for the boomers, but you could buy a house for a can of Coke and a Mars bar, so the rates didn't mean much. There are 3-bed 1-bath houses going for 800, 900k in parts of Adelaide's north, where a few years ago you would have had to hold a gun to someone's head to make them live there. This is Adelaide, mind you. I imagine it's a lot worse in the east. 34-year-old lawyer here. I absolutely relate. Have pretty much given up on ever owning a home. Well, my father bought our 4-bedroom home and supported us 4 kids and mum as a bus driver in the 70s. Look at the difference now. The young people today have been absolutely cheated out of a future that could have been rolled onto them, but instead the doors were slammed shut. Things are so hard now. I'm helping mine save by having them live rent-free while they save, and leveraging to help them with deposits as well. If this were a decade ago, I'd say just move and buy cheaper elsewhere, but everywhere is expensive now. Same deal. 30s, making more money than I ever have, but the parent I got stuck my mum with didn't own property, so now it's GG for the rest of my life? I have no idea how much more money I would need to make to be able to save for a deposit. It's a monumental climb to do that while forking out the insane rents we're paying. I live nowhere near a city, by the way. Regional. The price hike is Australia-wide and it's disgusting. We need to build more homes. Anyone who says just move or get a better job are the reason why there are so many scums in this country. Property is priced for the couples who are late 20s or early 30s who have help or have saved together. Only way out is to find someone else with the same mindset of buying. Too many young people don't even save and are not educated by parents on what the steps are. I bought a place in Western Sydney because I had a 5-year plan and saved hard. IMO the best way is to find a partner and share the cost of the loan, otherwise being single you will never afford a home. I often find myself arguing with landlords that the right to have housing trumps their right to a profit. It is coming down to if your parents owned or are able to support you to buy. I do think the social housing models built in Europe are the way forward. And we need to build up, not out. That just leaves those on the outskirts stuck with no transport or infrastructure. You guys need to move to Adelaide. Similar problem here, but much more attainable than Sydney, Melbourne. How much have you saved for a deposit OP? What's your current income? I think we all know it gets harder to buy a house every year, but complaining on Reddit will only get you so far. If I could only afford to live in the outer suburbs of Sydney, I would move into State 100. You can get the equivalent house, quality of life and lifestyle for a fraction of the price elsewhere. 75% of first home buyers in Sydney do so with support from their parents. 20% or Chinese investors from overseas. 5% well, mixed bag. We are headed directly for civil unrest. Once Labour's deliberate mass immigration destruction bites in at the end of next year and tent cities arise, well, there will certainly be some tension. I saw a lot of comments calling him out as if he was some sort of anomaly. No, you didn't. Stop making up fantasy realities. There were some of those comments, not a lot. The overwhelming majority of comments were empathy with his situation. Can't afford a house, or can't afford a house in Sydney. People refuse to look at alternatives. A mate of mine bought a house recently in Sydney for 1.8 M, I couldn't even fathom that. I went north, buying a house for $550K around the same time. In my opinion, he spent an extra 1.3 M to stay in the area. We are both in the trades, so work is plentiful anywhere. When, Mr. Butcher, in history has it ever been about anything different? Move out of Sydney and your economic life will improve dramatically. Right there with you, buddy. I feel you. Another post with no detail. I didn't get mine until I was 35. Is there anything your state government offers to help? I agree with you. The only people I know who have houses have them because their parents have helped them out in some way. It's insane and unfair that some of us will forever be stuck paying rent and never having our own place to call home. Yeah, I saw that post and the Sparky is entitled to complain. I'm a lawyer and my husband works and we are struggling to get a property. I posted something a few weeks ago on this sub and got nasty comments, so I deleted it. Mate, your second paragraph tells it all. You grew up happy and healthy. Your parents did the best they could. Why are you blaming them? Well, our parents never helped us, even though many do. So we had to move away to live somewhere cheaper. Now we see them once every year or two. It sucks, but it is what it is. Never rely on anyone, or expect any help. It must be so tough to be single and buy in this market. You have been cheated, and you should be shitty. The social contract is broken, crying face. My missus and I bought a house in January. We work at Woolworths. Definitely not making electrician $. It's out of control, but you can afford something. So what is everyone doing about this situation? Just writing comments on Reddit? How about go and actually protest on the street or to the government or something instead of typing comments on their phone and thinking it will change anything? My biggest mistake is that my parents never owned property. If you go your life believing that the reason you don't have a house is because your parents aren't rich, you're going to die renting. Can't afford a home where you want or can't afford one, full stop. Anyone disagreeing with these posts is delusional.